Welcome to another episode of the Federal Newswire's Business of America podcast with your host, Jerry Rogers.
The Business of America. I'm your host, Jerry Rogers. Were you expecting to see someone else? Nope. It's always me. If it's the Business of America, it's Jerry. If we're talking about the innovators and the advocates, talking about the doers, those people, men and women who make America work, it's the Jerry Rogers Business of America. I'm excited. Again, I say this all the time, but it's always the truth. I'm excited with today's guest. He recently co-wrote a piece for Real Clear Health dealing with telehealth, personal option healthcare, tech changes and policy changes in healthcare. So more people, especially in the Hispanic community and rural communities, more people have access to 21st century medicine. So this is another show in our series of shows and programs on American healthcare. So joining us from the LIBRE Initiative, Helder Toste. Did I get that right?
Yep, you got it.
Oh my! See, I tell you what, Helder, I ask every guest, even if it's Kate Smith, did I get that right? And I think part of that is because I spent years being a school teacher, and sometimes the easiest name is the name that you mess up, and I never want to. A person's name is who they are, and we're talking about today who people are in communities and healthcare. But why don't you first tell us a little bit about who you are, and tell us about the LIBRE Initiative, please.
Yeah, so my name is Helder Toste. I'm a first-generation American. My mom is from Mexico. My dad's from Portugal. I'm currently the full-time Government Affairs Liaison here at the LIBRE Initiative, where we predominantly help break down barriers for Latinos in the United States to be able to be beneficiaries, you could say, of better policy that focuses on breaking down barriers and improving their quality of life. So we predominantly lobby on economic issues, immigration, border security, but most importantly these days, healthcare, which is a hot topic as we go into 2025 and a big old reform window that's going to open up for the country as a whole.
There are so many controversial, provocative issues, right? Just in the last couple of days and couple of weeks, we've seen campus protests, we've seen commencement speakers and controversy. And it seems the media always wants to go toward what is the hot, controversial thing that divides us today, right? Healthcare, however, is an issue. In poll after poll after poll, the American people, regardless of demographic, regardless men or women, Hispanic or African-American or Asian, regardless of race, ethnicity, even in terms of economics, it is consistently a top 3 issue. But yet it seems our politicians ignore it. And policymakers don't touch it. I think Dems like to leverage the issue, and I think too often Republicans are a little lost on the issue. So I want to ask you this, because I'm excited about this. We hear a lot about the public option, right? Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts and Bernie Sanders from New Hampshire, of course, are big on the public option. But something that I've been hearing more and more about, which I find very exciting, is the personal option in healthcare. Tell us about the personal option, and then also, though, tell us about how it relates to telehealth, and we'll get more into the telehealth issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So the personal option is sort of a coin that we've been term that we coined, that we've been working with, that pretty much says, look, we all...
Wait, I got to interrupt you.
Yeah.
You coined the phrase personal option.
The ecosystem did, Americans for Prosperity.
Oh, okay. Very, very good. Yeah. Because I was going to say, I'm like, Helder, man.
I'm not that cool.
But the thing is, too, is I've stolen it from you, too, because in my own writing, I talk about the personal option now. But anyway, I'm sorry. Yes.
No, it's a lot of folks working on this.
Well, you know what? For the sake of the Business of America program, Helder, you coined the phrase.
No. I'm sorry. Well, but it's an important phrase, I think, for everyone to understand, because fundamentally what it's about is sort of a a pro-market, limited bureaucratic approach to healthcare. I think a lot of us understand that when you're trying to see a doctor or get any type of care these days, it is overwhelming. The forms, the paperwork,
Yes.
et cetera. Everyday people are really struggling. And so because we understand that it can be complicated and frustrating and expensive, the personal option fundamentally is a doctor-supported plan that the patient can work with their doctor to build, that is essentially going to build a healthcare for the individual, for a person, that is more affordable, more dependable, more transparent, especially when it comes to pricing, and is hassle-free. And so the way we're looking at it is, how do we get government out of the room to make sure that you can actually see your doctor and receive the care that's going to be best for you as an individual, and in the process, right, not only just remove barriers, but also lower the cost of everyday needs to be able to make sure that you're taking care of your family in the best way that works for you. Because healthcare, at the end of the day, is deeply personal, and everyone comes with different, issues, right, when it comes to healthcare. We want to make sure patients are empowered in that particular way.
It's interesting because it seems personal healthcare option, or the personal option in terms of healthcare policy, is in tune with or following the science. And what I mean by that is, we hear more and more about how it's personalized medicine, personalized care. Your DNA, how you respond to therapy, is going to be different. Even the same therapy from someone else. So we know the science and the medicine tells us that all medicine, all therapy, healthcare interventions are personal. So it makes perfect sense, therefore, that healthcare policy should follow the science, and it should be personal option in healthcare, a healthcare program built for you, just like interventions and therapies and surgeries and medicines and biosimilars and biologics are also react differently to different people. But let me ask you this, because the COVID pandemic, there was lots of strife, shutdowns, a lot of misinformation. We see a lot of after effects from that. But a good thing that came out of the pandemic was the expansion of telehealth. And I know that my family benefited from this. We live in Montgomery County in the DMV outside of DC. It is a doctor, medicine, healthcare. I mean, I live close to the FDA. I live close to all of these science centers. And so I'm in the center of healthcare in America. But even still, we needed access to telehealth, which helped my family. Now, telehealth expansion happened during the pandemic, but tell us about how telehealth has impacted the Latino, the Hispanic community, and other communities that are in rural areas or in healthcare deserts. I mean, we see this in urban areas. In fact, we hear a lot about healthcare deserts in rural areas. In urban areas. We don't hear enough, I don't think, in terms of rural areas and healthcare deserts. But put this together for us: telehealth, the Latino community, and healthcare deserts.
Yeah, no. So I guess to kind of take a step back to what you're saying, you're totally right. I mean, before the pandemic, telehealth was ultra regulated. You couldn't get it. It was hard to get access to. Even if you did have it, it was unreliable. Providers didn't really want to lean into it. So to paint the numbers, right, only about 5 million people nationally were using it before the pandemic.
I'm shocked by that number.
5 million.
5 million out of nearly 300 million Americans
Yep.
had access to this, in many instances, life-changing, life-saving technology.
Yeah, and now the new number as of this past year is over 60 million Americans, so a 1,000% increase.
And it should be that and more.
Absolutely. Well, that 1,000% increase, I mean, we're looking at 55 million more Americans now actually using it. And this goes to what you're saying. So as the pandemic hit and the government said, okay, we have to make sure people don't crowd into ER rooms or urgent care and get each other sick. We need to be proactive. Let's do preventative health, right? Let's scale up the telehealth process, because if you have strep, right, and you had to go into the ER, in Baltimore, Philadelphia, LA, or separately a small clinic, the odds you were going to get sick from someone else who was there for a totally unrelated thing was huge. But you don't really need to do that, but you still need it to get your prescription. And so as telehealth kept expanding and more people could use it, we had a whole group of people that could never really have access, especially in rural areas, but also underserved urban communities, just like you're saying, that all of a sudden could do it. And so the reason all this comes together in a very unique way is that we've gave people more options to use telehealth across Medicare beneficiaries, Medicaid, and then separately those that had private insurance plans that could actually now offer the service. So when you gave people the option, what did 60 million Americans say? Yeah, I absolutely want to use telehealth. And the reason for that is also, especially now, even more important. The cost of living has gone through the roof, right? And so if you're in a rural community, over 50% of the 50 million people living in rural America have to drive more than 30 minutes to get to a clinic or a hospital. Gas prices in California right now are averaging $6. If you're in a rural California county, it's not just about getting to the doctors and then having to pay whatever the copay or then the charge is, right? It's how do I get there? Then I have to get to a pharmacy. And then more and more Americans are now taking second and third jobs. So this flexibility is crucial to make sure that working class people, rural people, and then people who sometimes have extra barriers to be able to see the doctor, which in this case would be linguistic for some Americans. With disability, folks, when we think linguistic, some say, oh, it's Spanish speakers or Portuguese speakers or no, you could also have a regular, an audiovisual disability where it just takes a little longer to see a doctor. Here in DC, I have Gallaudet University. They've been pioneering a lot of work, which of course is a wonderful university for deaf students and Americans. Yeah, and that's kind of how this picture starts to come together is we gave people more options, way more people and more diverse audience started using it. And so now we have a system that's trying to not only keep up, but dealing with the fact that all these provisions that allowed everyone to get access are going to expire next year. Some are going to expire at the end of the year. And that's why we're bothering everyone today this morning on the call, because, the truth is we're at a huge inflection point for this particular aspect of healthcare. And unfortunately, as you touched on, telehealth is not sexy. People think of all these other things that are hot and gets people so heated. Well, maybe if we storm a campus and we put up tents and put placards, we demand telehealth. Right. That we're not gonna. Well, but what a great point. But here's the thing too. So a lot of these reforms that came out of expansions that came out of the pandemic were not made permanent. Right. And so people have to understand that there are reforms from the pandemic that we should make permanent. There's legislative and regulatory barriers to that. But to your point, it's not sexy. It's not provocative. But however, I think what we have going for us, it is incredibly bipartisan and multipartisan and nonpartisan. I have yet, and I work with former members of the administration, current members of the administration at Real Clear Health. I've had interactions with Secretary Becerra, and before that with Secretary Eric Hargan. So again, both Republican, Democrat. No one, and I mean this literally, I'm not trying to make a point here. I mean literally, no one is against expanding telehealth. So then why can't we get our act together? This is a bipartisan win in an election year. Everyone should get together and have a big old healthcare party and sign this for seniors and I love what you said too. You said these words in the last 10 minutes. You said personal option healthcare is everyday people healthcare, right? So boom. You said it's preventative healthcare. Again, boom. I'm going to do a boom after all these good points. You talked about increasing options and allowing for more diversity. I mean, if this is not a bipartisan, multi-partisan, who cares your ideology win, it's a huge win. Why not take the win? What are the barriers to getting this win? Yeah, so that's a great question. People are always wondering what nothing gets done in this
that's the most important
Um,
question, right?
it is, right? So I guess we can start saying I'll give kudos to where it's deserved, right? So the House side of the equation, the last 3 years, they have passed the last three Congresses since 2020, they have passed bills to address this permanently. There is a bipartisan group of Republican and Democrats. It got over 400 votes the last time it left the House. I mean, like you said, this thing is, everybody loves it, everybody wants it. But the issue has been really passing the hurdle in the Senate. You need 66 votes there. And in the past, even though we had really hardworking members of Congress, we have Democrat Congresswoman Matsui and Democrat Congressman Mike Thompson, both from California.
Yep.
But then they were partnering with Congressman Schweikert from Arizona, who represents a more suburban area. They were all working together. We didn't have a Senate leader to really want to deliver the baby or push it through or put in the work, right?
Yes.
So
we're in labor pains right now.
That's right. And so Senator Schatz, who's from Hawaii,
sure,
he actually has already pulled together a bill that covers everything with 66 senators. And so now the biggest hurdle, there's two of them. One is we're going to, the House committees have unanimously passed tons of these provisions out already. So all we're waiting, there's two last things before it ends up on the president's desk, is a floor vote in the House. And then finally, all those bills are already teed up on the Senate side. We're going to need Chuck Schumer to give us time on the Senate floor to have a vote on this package to get it to the president's desk where we're guaranteed to sign it. And so at this stage, it's making sure that these great bills that have really gone through committee, we have wide support, are also going to be voted in a clean manner. And this is the part where it starts to get murky, right?
Oh, yes, of course, because someone puts a poison pill, someone puts something overtly partisan and kills something that everyone wants.
Right. And
it's like putting a pickle right in the middle of the ice cream.
Right. I mean, I really don't like pickles to begin with, so that is a very good analogy.
Well, I said pickle. I mean, if this was a different type of podcast and my mother wasn't watching, I'd say something else besides pickle. But you got my point.
But it's true because that's kind of one of the worst ththings about this country's operating system is we have great ideas of things that people really love, and we have people that decide that they're going to poison pill it and make it a non-negotiable and a non-starter. But when you have, 60 million Americans that really depend on this care to improve their outcomes, and you're going to shut the door on them, I think that's deeply unethical. But also it goes against the spirit of people being able to do what they need to, right? In the United States, we really shouldn't have to decide if we're going to get care or not get health care, right? We want to make sure everyone has those options. And the government could do something really simple, which is get out of its own way.
Yeah.
And so that's really where I think the number one sort of responsibility of the viewers, of you really doing this work today, why it's so important, call your members of Congress, call your senators. Frankly, if you don't like calling, that's totally fine. They have an email form you can fill out, to actually tell your member, hey, please focus on a clean telehealth bill. Please pass the personal option healthcare system. Help me protect my healthcare choices. And it's really straightforward. But if Congress thinks that it's like not an issue that's in the news, or a staffer isn't hearing about it every day, if you don't blow up their phones or their email inboxes and demand, they take action, sometimes they just don't. And that's where we come into the picture as citizens. We also have to hold our government accountable to our needs. And this is one of the easiest ways we can do it.
And this is the purpose of this program, the Business of America. It's the ethos of the program is to highlight those men and women in the arena, Teddy Roosevelt's in the arena, men and women who are making things happen. But there's always those on the sidelines who are criticizing and putting up roadblocks. And so, look, I'm acquainted with Senator Schumer. I'm from New York originally. He's from Brooklyn. I'm from the Bronx. I've been on myriad events, daises with him. I've been on airplane rides with him. I think at the end of the day, he wants what's best for his constituents. I'm sure he does, actually. But I'm also equally sure that Republicans and Democrats in other areas of the country, rural areas and other areas, urban areas, I do a radio show based out of Baltimore. And I'm telling you right now, you talk about driving blocks and blocks to get to a clinic. It's healthcare deserts are real. I find this, and I'm going to ask you this, and if I'm going to put you on the spot, well, too bad. I'm going to do it. I think narrative and stories help push things over the finish line. Sometimes I run these seminars with groups that fly in. Jerry, you've been in policy for 25 years. You're at Real Clear Politics. You podcasts and radio shows. Help us. How do we communicate our message? And what I say all the time is, and I learned it from someone who appeared on this show, the 3-second rule, which is you got to get their attention in 3 seconds. And how do you do that? With a personal story. Let me tell you what happened to my mom. Let me tell you what my neighbor, and boom, what? And you have their attention. And so this seems to be a perfect topic to bring in personal stories. Do you have any? Do you use them? Can we publish some at Real Clear Health? Tell us about some good narratives as to why members of Congress and the Senate should pass this.
Yeah, I guess I could, frankly, the best story I have for you is my own. I grew up in a household where we didn't speak English. And my mom and my dad, they worked really hard on a dairy farm in Central California. Okay. And my mom has heart issues and other health issues, And so for me personally, even at a young age, 10, 11, 12, I was in the doctor's office with my mom translating. Trying to translate really complicated and difficult medical terms into everyday understandable Spanish. As a 12-year-old, you're not really best to support your mom or your dad through that process. And for Libre, that's why it's personal. There's 25 million Americans in this country that have limited English that really need good health care. And so that's an interesting number, but really, we're invested because for me, it's about my mom. It's about making sure that when she's in the doctor's room and meeting with the cardiologist, if I physically can't be there, we don't live near each other anymore. I live in DC. She lives in North Carolina. Is she getting the care that she needs? And so I think all of us, it doesn't matter if it's a family member or a neighbor that you care about or a person, that you see at the grocery store, everyone, and this is the ethical side, deserves the opportunity to have care that's going to really make their lives better and improve their outcomes so that they can actually receive the care they need. And so this barrier is really one that's so, like I said, super personal and one that we're trying to overcome because at the end of the day, it's also about human dignity. When we have a conversation about bureaucrats and numbers, we kind of forget that there's a person behind all those numbers. And it doesn't take too hard. We're a big family. There's 6, big Catholic family. There were 7 of us. So I'm the oldest of 4. And, my mom was always juggling all these things to take one of us. If one of the 4 kids goes down with the sickness, how do you fit that into already your busy schedule? And so for us, it wasn't just the fact that the closest clinic for us was 30 minutes away. But if not just that, separately, you have, a pretty big family that you're taking care of. And so for us, all this kind of came to a head. And so my story is personal. I think this topic is personal for so many people because I want folks to think about on this call, were you in a situation in the last 4 years during the pandemic where you really needed to see a doctor and you couldn't, where you finally were able to get a hold of someone because you had a phone in your hand that now most people have, or someone was able to connect you to the care you needed? If it helped you, it's worth advocating for it, not just for yourself, but for people who will be in the future situation where they need this type of assistance. And it takes a village sometimes to get, and to do these things. But to your point, if you're going to call your member of Congress, don't say necessarily just like what I did at the beginning where it's, hey, I need telehealth expansion. Say, during the pandemic, I struggled with these things. The other thing that people don't think about when it comes to telehealth, they think it's just seeing a doctor. 60% of mental health are now being done on telehealth. So to see a psychiatrist, we have record, especially with youths, right? Young people with depression, anxiety, all these issues. The ability for them to see a therapist or someone to provide mental health services, 60% of those are being done over call time or over talk, or they're being done via video. So it's also about solving our country's mental health crisis, right? And to make sure too, especially as care has become harder to reach, we have a huge physician shortage in this country. We're looking at people, especially elderly people, who already deal with issues of isolation. They don't have the care they need. A lot of folks don't have home care. This may be the only way they see a person that actually can help them have the medicine they need so that they can, do what they need to do. And so it is way more than just the surface that we've talked about. The top lines are great, but the personal ability to affect so many people positively is just, there's no value to it, genuinely.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're hitting on topics that we've had previous shows on. We had an innovator on here whose mother suffered through depression, but because of work and because of responsibilities, she couldn't get to the doctor. And so, it was his mother, and what these two brothers did, they developed an app that would allow telehealth, connecting with providers much easier. And then we've had other instances. Last week on the show, we had someone on from the Society for Women's Health Research and the American Heart Association. People don't realize that we're talking about diversity in healthcare. May is Women's Health Month. And women suffer through cardiovascular issues different than men. And so this idea of if we're going to have we hear the word diversity all the time. It's leveraged in politics, usually in a manner to divide us. However, when it comes to healthcare and telehealth, diversity is something that should unite us, because how we get care, who needs the care, what kind of care. There's all kinds of diversity here in terms of communities. You mentioned your family, your siblings. What if I have to not go to work or get daycare to go and see a doctor? And again, this seems to me to be an area where we could get the biggest bang for the buck, right? We didn't talk much about cost. We don't have to here. We do it on another show. But the fact of the matter is, healthcare is expensive. I have 5 children, and I do well. God has blessed me, but I still worry about healthcare bills all the time. Healthcare is something that I'm anxious over. Recently, my daughter was ill, could not get to the doctor, but I was worried about her symptoms, and so she set up a telehealth, and she had to eventually go and see a specialist, but it was a telehealth consultation that gave us all peace of mind, and also gave us a strategy for moving forward. I mean, I was suffering recently with some breathing issues, some asthma issues. Because of work, I couldn't drop everything and get to the doctor. I had a telehealth, and they prescribed me medicine because they know my history and my doctor. And I got some asthma medicine, and I got immediate relief, so I can breathe again. And so again, this is something that is a game changer, and that term is used too much, but it really is. We need to have more conversations on this. Maybe we do a series on health technology, 21st century health. We talk a lot about modernizing healthcare. Well, I still think many patients, especially those in rural communities, especially those in Latino or new immigrant communities, we're still offering them 20th century health. We haven't offered them the best yet. And again, I love my country. I'm a patriot. We have the best healthcare. The problem is delivery and access, and telehealth helps to solve that. I'm going to give you the last word.
No, I think really at the end of the day, you hit the nail on the head. There's so much we can do to update our healthcare system to be the 21st century, but also to take care of the communities that, often don't have the biggest say in the healthcare system. And I think sometimes the angle is rural, but like you said, there are urban areas that are struggling. You don't have to look further sometimes than a neighborhood down your street to have a group of people that need to have this opportunity to really have the personal option made available to them full time by law. Only Congress can do that. And over the next few months into the end of the year and next year, it is crucial that we work together to make sure that we tear down these barriers permanently with legal solutions to make sure that we can build on this to improve outcomes across the board in other ways. And that's pretty much what it comes down to.
I'm the host, and so therefore I'm going to ask you one more question.
Absolutely.
Because I think this is important. There's the old cliche, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. Who are the best advocates for telehealth? We have lobbyists and we have experts and think tanks. We have academics. But it seems to me, my answer would be, it really is the moms and dads and sons and daughters. What do you think about that?
You you are the best
Yes.
advocate for your healthcare.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. It's not the government. Frankly, it's not even the doctor, because a doctor is only as equipped as you are to meet your needs. And so this is a personal thing. You have to take control of your own healthcare. I know it's a total headache and it's not a fun task, but it's crucial that you, the patient, are in charge, that you, the patient, are driving your outcomes. Because like you said, we live in a country where we have the best medical outcomes for people anywhere on the world. But if you don't advocate for yourself through that process, you're not able to get the care you need. And that is fundamentally what it's about. It's about you, the patient, you, the individual, you, the person that's part of a family and of a community, to fight this and deliver the results that all Americans are going to benefit from.
Yeah. This has been a good show. I always say this, it's like a joke at the end. This has been the best show we've had. Well, this is the best show we've had so far. Helder, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your commitment to this issue. The LIBRE Initiative, we'll make sure that our audience knows more about it. I want to see you in the pages of Real Clear more often. Great. And I'd like to have you back on the Business of America. But for today, we'll put a stop to the conversation now, because I can go on forever. You said you're from a big Mexican family. I'm from a big Irish family, and one thing I say this as an aside. One thing that the Irish, the Italians, the Mexicans, and the Cubans all have in common: we big families, big conversations, and a lot of food. Right, yeah. and our faith too. So this has been a wonderful conversation, Helder. I appreciate you and taking the time for our audience. I mean, this is it. Do what Helder says. Let's go out. Let's advocate. Advocate for yourself. Let's make sure telehealth, these services, this diversity in services, the personal option. Let's make sure this is something permanent that's part of our modern healthcare system. All Americans deserve it, and you can make it happen. Hey, thanks. We'll see you next time.
This has been the Federal Newswire's Business of America podcast, hosted by Jerry Rogers. Check out the Federal Newswire's family of websites, as well as their social media stream